meeting. The meeting is going to be very, very, engaging, very interactive, and very sort of informal, since we are all colleagues, and used to be our members and our guides, our mentors, and I would hope it will remain the same throughout this meeting, and it's going to last roughly an hour. So we'll try as much as possible to stick to time and answer the most important questions. For those who are not familiar with the whole emergency medicine residency pathway, or how to start or where to start from, I will advise you seek for more information so that you will be more familiar with the processes, because even in as much as we will introduce the whole pathway a bit rough in just a brief format, but to have more understanding, it's advisable that you look for information online, which are readily available, and we will try to simplify the more technical aspects in this session. So kindly bear with us. And just to start, I would like to begin the session with an icebreaker questions. I don't know, Dr. Adebisi, would you like to share with us your reaction the moment you found out that you matched into emergency medicine? Humors, any reaction, whether dramatic or as dramatic as it can be. Just kindly share with us your reaction the moment you found out that you matched into emergency medicine residency in the US. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you all for inviting myself and also Simi. She'll also speak for herself, but thank you for inviting us to share our stories about the match and to also share some point about how to improve your competitiveness. I was in the couples match, which means that I applied with my then fiancé, now husband. But sorry, somebody is unmuted. But so we had to check the results at the same time. So it's a little bit different than when you're doing it alone. So I definitely had, like, it was the two of us at the same time. The biggest emotion I felt was relief, to be very honest with you. There wasn't as much excitement as you may have thought, or that I thought I would have. Even looking into the years ahead, I thought you'd be so happy on that day. But to be very honest with you, I was just like, do we have it? Yes. Okay, thank God. That was how it was for me. It was more of relief, and the excitement came, later on, and the happiness came later on. But for that day, it was just like, thank God I don't have to do this all over again. So that was honestly the story for me.
Okay, that's so interesting. Dr. Simi, would you like to share with us, your reaction the moment you found out that you have matched into emergency medicine in Washington University?
Okay, yeah, sure. I think for me, my email came in like 7 minutes late. So in that period, those 7 minutes are actually really long minutes, because then I was already seeing people posting on no group chats like, oh, they matched. I was already congratulating people, and then people already asking me how far are you. I'm like, yeah, I'm still waiting for my email. So yeah, 7 long minutes actually. But then, just like what BC said, the email came in. I opened it from my notifications, and then I was like, oh, thank God. So it was really that whole, yeah, we finally climbed to the height of this, and then you're like so relieved that now I can finally breathe and like move on with my life. So it was really relief, and I don't know, maybe in another world we probably would have run around in circles or something, but it was a lot of hard work, so we're just happy to at least have a positive outcome.
I can imagine. It must have been so stressful, to be seeing people in the group chat, everybody dropping his, emails, and you are there still waiting for your own. It must have been so difficult. But I'm glad it worked out. Thank you so much for sharing that. By the way, can you please, maybe just a bit briefly, or let me say with one word, if you can, describe how the whole match process was for you. If you have to use just a single word to describe the whole match process, what could it be?
Okay, I'll just yeah, it was challenging. I'll use the word challenging. Challenging.
Dr. VC, you want to say something?
I don't even know. And it's really sad because you already prompted us with some of these questions, but I've been thinking long and hard at it. Is there one word that describes it? I don't even know. I don't even know the one word to use. So what I would say is that there was just too much happening during the time of my match. And so maybe it was helpful for me. I did not feel too much pressure of the match because I had some more pressuring things happening in my life at that time. So in a way, it was taking a bit of the backseat, if I'm being very honest. I'm not sure what word can describe what I just said now. So
Okay.
there was just too
And
much happening. It was just there, you know, honestly, just somewhere by the side happening on its own.
I can understand. I can understand. I can relate to that. So, but by the way, what's the most weirdest thing, or the most weirdest or unexpected thing you learned throughout the whole process? What could that be?
Okay. So maybe I can take this one first. Something weird. I'm not sure if I discovered anything weird during the match season, like in definition of what is weird, but something unexpected, not as expected was I realized that the whole match process is challenging for the programs as well. It is very hard on us. We don't like it's so hard, it's so challenging, like the word Simi used, very stressful, all the words that you can think of, but it is equally, maybe not equally, but it's so much as challenging for the programs and for all the people involved in it on the other end. They are also trying to get it right. They're also trying to find the right candidates. They're also really scared about, making mistakes. It's a whole lot of emotions on both ends. And I think having that understanding and being able to, in some ways, put myself in their shoes helped me have a very good balance of things when I was feeling all sorts of emotions or not being happy about some outcomes. When I thought about how it would be on their end, also walking through all of the applications they had and trying to make a good decision on people to pick, it was good reflection to have. Let me just say it that way.
Okay, that's great. And I don't know if you would like to add something, Dr. Simi,
Yeah, I mean, like what
on that
BC
note.
said is actually very accurate. It's something that you find out, getting to see things from their own perspective when you're in the process. But I think for me, one thing that really stood out was the fact that the match is an experience. It kind of feels like it doesn't really matter what you've read about it or what you've asked, like the questions you've asked about it. It's an experience. Like you will feel it, you will let on the go. It's difficult to really describe it until you go through it, and then you appreciate those who have gone through it because it's really an experience. I just hope that makes some sense.
Oh, it does definitely. Thank you so much. All right. So for those that are new to the whole process, I know most of us are aware of, how to proceed, but just for the sake of those who are new to the whole process, you should understand that to, practice in the United States, if that was your dream, if that's your dream, to practice in the United States, even though some states now are introducing some laws that will, bypass repeating a whole residency for those that are licensed in their home countries or something. But in a general overview, for those coming from some foreign trained countries, what we normally call them international medical graduate or IMGs, you will need to first, register with the educational certificates for foreign medical graduates. That's ECFMG. I think you apply for Form 1, is it 186 or something? And they will send that form to your medical school to verify that you are enrolled there and you're a medical student, and then you need to notarize your registration to verify your identity. Either you are using your international passport or some other government issued passport, identity card. And then you can then register and sit down for the step 1 exam. After passing, or you can register for in any order, the step 1 or the step 2 phase, whichever one you like. But more advisable, you start with step 1 and then step 2. After passing, you can then register for OET, depending on the pathway you are following. That's to say, but generally do your OET exam, OET medicine, and then get pathway certification either through the common pathway. Is it pathway 1 for graduates and then pathway 5 or 6 for those that are still students? And then you start, get your ICP certification. Then you start applying for residencies, during the March cycle. I think it starts around September, August, each year. And then you apply to different programs. You get some interviews, some you don't, depending on how lucky you are. And then you finally rank your interviews and you have March in the 2nd or 3rd week of March, right? So this is just a brief overview, but I will let the people that have gone through the whole process, talk about it if they would like to add anything on that. So Dr. Simi, let me start with you. Would you like to add anything on, just to describe the pathway?
Well, to be honest, you've touched on every single step. So I think you've actually done a fantastic, like that's exactly everything that you have to go through to finally match. And then you find out where you matched on a Monday. I think usually the 3rd Monday of the month, and then you find out where you matched on the Friday of that week. And then in between Monday and Friday, that's the supplementary offer. The swapping happens between Monday and Friday. So on Friday, everybody knows where they matched. But you've actually said everything about the process.
Oh. I wasn't sure I have captured that, so thank you so much. Dr. VC, maybe we skipped something for all of us. Would you like to add?
No. You've not skipped anything. In terms of the steps that it will take you to get to matching, you've listed all of the steps. But these are like the tangible things that everybody talks about. So you take the exams, you put together your application, you submit your personal statement, letters of recommendation, all of that, and then you get through it and your result comes out. But there's so much more that happens under the surface that is not a documented step in the sense of the word, but are all things that come together for you to be successful in the match. Many of them, Simie and myself will be talking about them today because me and her, we've already chatted. So there's a lot of unspoken things, a lot of things that happen and should be happening. Like you should be making some moves and taking some steps aside like writing the exams. I feel like when you're first new to the idea of going to the US for residency match, all you hear about are the exams, like step 1, step 2 is so glorified. But in the real world of application, step 1 and step 2 are actually just means to an end. You need to get through step 1 and step 2 decently to even be like, we're even at the table to talk about you getting a residency spot. But what we're talking about for you getting a residency spot is not about step 1 and step 2. So it's like you need to get through it to enter into the hall or to pass through the gates. But when you're through the gates, step 1 and step 2 is no longer a conversation. It's no longer the topic of conversation. Now we want to know why we should take you as a candidate. And all of those things are what will guarantee, in many cases, if you're successful in the match or not, at least for emergency medicine, which is the one we're speaking about today.
That's so amazing. And okay, so if I understand, step 1 and 2 is just like a knock on the door, and if they open, then you start, preparing to put yourself out there. I think this is great. And with all this, maybe I should also develop interest in, pursuing this pathway. And if that's the case, I think I have better go on the sideline and pick up my notebook and jot whatever I can, so that I will have all the knowledge needed at my fingertip. So I would like to hand over the moderation of this session to my Vice President, Dr. Lama Yakubu, so that I will also be a passive learner. Dr. Lama, you have the floor, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and well, looking forward to learning everything I can from the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lawan. I'm also a learner now. As a matter of fact, I think the knowledge deficit is even more when it comes to me. Thank you very much. So to the questions proper, Good evening once again, Dr. BC and Dr. Simi.
Good
So I
evening.
would want to ask, what resources or materials do you think? So since you said that the step 1 and the step 2, they are like you need to pass through them before you actually get to the table where you have that conversation. So let's go back to the beginning. So while preparing for USMLE exams, what were the resources and materials you used, and which would you recommend to somebody new who is just starting out?
I'll defer this question to you, Simi.
Okay. So for the resources that you will use, I personally like to split them into like your resources for studying and your resources for like assessments, like your question bank. And I think that everyone would agree that for your assessment, you need to do your NBMEs and you need to do your UWorld. And I know that today there are many other question banks like AMBOs, like Medical Spera. There are many other ones that you can use, but I think the ones that are universally tried and trusted, so your UWorld, and of course you have to do your NBME. You cannot write your steps without doing the most recent NBMEs. Now for the studying part, I think generally for both steps, you you wrote an MBME for both steps, and then for step 1, first aid is in particular very useful. Same with Boards and Beyond and Sketchy, and Pathoma as well. But then there are so many resources for step 1. As you go through, or if you've written step 1, you'd actually realize that there's so many resources for step 1. I generally believe that less is more. So you should consolidate on the ones that you want to use and use them beautifully well. But then, yeah, those ones really, Birds and Beyond, Sketchy, Pathoma, um, first aid, very important for step 1. But for step 2, honestly, UWorld is pretty decent because your step 2 builds on your knowledge from step 1. If you've had a good knowledge base from step 1, you'll be able to supplement that for your step 2. So doing just UWorld and AMBOs for ethics. AMBOs is very good for ethics. So doing UWorld AMBOs, I think you'll be pretty fine for step 2. But that's just my own personal opinion. But again, as you go through this journey, you realize that it's very individualized, and then you might have some deficits that other people don't have. So for whatever it is that you've discovered in your process of learning and preparing, you should pursue it, so that you can fill those deficits and you can make your own plan that works perfectly well for you. But again, as you're studying, you're doing your NBMEs, you're assessing yourself, so you will know when you're ready for the exam. But those are just like the basic things that you need to just look at them as your assessment tools and your studying tools.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, just to clarify, you mentioned something. Is it NBME? What's that word again?
Okay, yes, NBMEs. They're like mock exams, so to say. So they're 200 questions. You have NBMEs coming out at different times. So it's always better to take the more recent ones, and then you do them, you score them, or rather, if you take it on your website, you get to see your score, and it gives you an idea of how prepared you are for the exam, and then you can revise the answers as well.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Simi, for such an elaborate answer. So moving on to the next one, I would want to ask that for each of you, how was your step 1 and step 2 preparation like, and how was the exam experience? I think you've shed more light on the preparation. So how was the exam experience like, Dr. Bisney?
Depend.
Okay. Okay. About personal experience, just of course who has a hand up. I think
That's how you do it.
For the exam experience, for step 1, I took my step 1 in 2023, and earlier in the year, it was after medical school, after house job as well. It was already pass or fail then, so it was low effort for me, to be honest. I just really wanted to pass. I mean, I finished house job at the end of December into early January-ish. I left HSC mid January. I went back home and then I took the exam in April. I had started reading for it in the year 2021 when I was still like final year of med school. And I read quite a bit, but something happened that I couldn't take the exam then. And I stopped reading. Came back in 2023 and started reading from like January to April, and I took it. So, and that was when I just did UWorld for the first time. I had not opened UWorld before then. So I did UWorld then, and I revised what I could. I just wanted to make a pass mark. I checked my MBMs. I was doing my MBMs, and they were already like passing and above a passing score. So I knew that I could pass with my preparation at that time. I wasn't so focused on like hitting very high mark, as there was no mark being provided. So the experience of the main exam, thankfully, I had learned from many people that had done this, and they had said a lot of things about endurance being the most critical part of the exam and not necessarily just knowledge. So you have gathered knowledge a lot by like reading and taking your assessment exams. But if you have not built yourself to be able to withstand the 8 hours of the exam, like you will not even be able to think and answer the questions accurately and within the time that is allotted. Each block will end in an allotted time. If you don't finish the questions, you've not finished questions, it will come to an end. So it doesn't matter how much you know. If you've not gone through all of the questions and you're not finishing your blocks, you may not be able to make the pass score. So I had been told this by lots of people who had taken it, to make sure I did like lots of mock examinations where I was sitting through 5 hours of exams, 6 hours of exams, and I had done that consistently the 1 to 2 weeks before my examination date. So that day when I got the endurance, thankfully, was not a problem. I was able to do my blocks and finish all of them on time, and thankfully my result was passed. The exam was slightly harder than I prepared for. Slightly harder based on my knowledge base as well. There were a lot of resources they told me to also read that I did not eventually get to. And I'm sure Sydney will remember the experience because I called her when I was in Ghana taking the exam at that time. But it was slightly harder but I was still hopeful like I was going to make a pass score, and thankfully I did. Step 2 was a lot worse in terms of experience wise. No offense. I was doing my master's at that time. I took my step 2 last day of January last year. Yes, so January 30th, I think. And I was doing my master's degree at that time. In fact, I was also working. It was just a terrible time to be taking it. But we had a 2-week Christmas break holiday in December, and I wanted to take it in January, and I just tried my best to study every like 16 hours for the 2 weeks of holiday that I had. And then, there's a lot of story to it that I don't think is appropriate for this platform, but like I did my mocks after the 2 weeks, early January, and I failed. And then, I called Simi, the Francis. Simi had taken her exam and really aced it. And I called her like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen this January that I've already fixed my exam for. And I could not move it because I had moved the exam once before then. And that was the end. I would have had to pay another amount of money for the exam, fresh registration for the exam. And so I had to take it. But God came through. This time, the experience of the exam day itself was still fine. The endurance was okay. The exam was hard, still hard, despite all of the things that we tried to do. But thankfully, I passed. I passed the score that I needed to get, or rather that I wanted to get, the score I'd set for myself to get in the exam. I was able to move past it by a few points, but thank God. So that was how that one went. Simi.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like I'm going to try not to repeat anything this year said, but it's quite the experience. I think for me, and I'm actually just going to talk more about my step 1 because I've had a couple of people ask me how they can do it during house job. This and I have almost mirrored experiences. So we both started reading together in 2021. Something happened to both of us. We couldn't take the exam. We stopped reading for a bit. We went into house job. But then the difference is I think that in some ecstatic moments of not knowing, I picked an eligibility period and I forgot about it. I forgot I chose an eligibility period. And when my transcript was finally sent to ECFMG after the national strike was called off, I just got an email in my doing house job. I mean, I was passively reading during house job because I knew I wanted to take it after house job, but it wasn't really like my life depending on it. And then somewhere in the middle of house job, I got that email saying that I can now choose an exam date, and I was like, "Excuse you, what?" And then I checked, and true, it had come through. Like I could choose a date for the exam, and I was so terrified. I had to pay to move my eligibility period by the next 3 months and chose the last day of my new eligibility period for my exam. So then I knew that I had to take this exam and it was going to happen immediately after house job. It was not a very nice experience because if you do house job in a teaching hospital, uh, like just surviving is hard and not so hard putting USMLE on top of it. So I think it was really good that it was pass or fail at that point because I just wanted to pass now. So I just needed to pass. And this is not to say that to discount you trying to be excellent. No, please by all means try to be excellent. It was just given the circumstances at the time. It wasn't going to be practical for me to be aiming at scoring 90% in my MBMEs. It was going to be more practical for me to be scoring 70s in my MBMEs because then at least I was assured that I'll pass the exam. So yeah, it was the preparatory phase was very chaotic. I it was really chaotic. I do not recommend doing it during house job, but if you do have to prepare during house job, again, it's individualized, but just know that it's not a very fantastic experience. But then for the exam itself, just like what BC said, time management, endurance, very important. You want to go with snacks that give you a lot of energy, so like granola bars or chocolates. Definitely not bread, rice, because you probably shouldn't be doing that. But then you do want to go with things that would actually give you some energy. And then, so the exam experience itself was exhausting for step one. By step two, it felt better because then you've had more experience with it. And because of my experience with step one, for my step two, I actually paced it such that even though I was working while I was preparing, I did not want to experience my step one all over again. So I took some time off to prepare for my step two, closer to my exam date. I took some time off work to actively prepare for just step two. So yeah, that's my experience. But if you're preparing to take the exam, just know like what BC said, beyond just knowing what to take in the MCQs, you need to know how to pace yourself. You need to be strong, like so you can actually think through because the exam is hard. It's harder than what you would find yourself preparing for some weird reason. The real exam is hard, but then you need to be able to think the same way you were able to think clearly in your first question. The same way you should be able to think clearly in your last question, and you need endurance and a lot of practice to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. La wanted to add something. Yeah, raise hand. Dr.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Lama. I just wanted to confirm with our guest. They mentioned study materials, UWorld, Fatoma, NBN, NBN and stuff like that. I've seen quite a lot of these resources, especially on Telegram, offline versions and everything. So I just wanted to confirm: is it wise to stick to the offline versions, or do you advise people to get the subscribed version, just for the prep sake, and considering all that things, especially cost and everything? Is it wise to, stick with the offline, or just you needed to get the subscribed versions? Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
because I was the one who talked about the materials used. Um, for I would always advise getting the paid version because when you get the paid version, you can see your average scores. It helps you to be able to monitor your progress. It helps you to take your work comes with self-assessment, and then you can take the self-assessment and still be able to be objective about how well you're studying. You will not get that experience with an offline version. I think the only time you can maybe risk an offline version of which is actually not okay. I'll just stick to saying that I would encourage you to use an online version. It comes with other study tools that you won't have access to with an offline version.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Simi, for that answer. I would like to ask, earlier on when Dr. BC was talking, she did mention that the matching process is actually not just about the step 1 and step 2. She mentioned that there are lots of things in between. So I would want to explore that. My first question would be that how did you build a strong profile specifically for emergency medicine? And you can highlight on all those things in between. So after the USME step 1 and step 2, was it when you started building the profile, or were there other things you were doing in the background before you wrote the exams that helped you build the profile? So just run us through it.
Okay. The realistic way to do it is just to make this a very, very short overview, because each of those ones can be like its own 1 hour event that we will talk through till the final detail. But I will say that what I have learned from emergency medicine. Now, people match in internal medicine and some other specialties differently. Emergency medicine is quite different. I know it's still like primary care. It's not a surgical specialty that, their own competition is at a much higher level than emergency medicine. Nonetheless, emergency medicine is quite unique. They are very big on identifying candidates who are passionate about emergency medicine. However, that question of passion is answered. That's it. That is up to you, the candidates, to show them how passionate you are and what that passion means to you and how you've demonstrated it over the years. But they are very, 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 they are big believers in the fact that emergency medicine appeals to certain kind of people. Not everyone can do it. People who want to go to emergency medicine really want to do emergency medicine. And so it is demonstrated one way or the other in how you put your application together. And they are looking for the signs of that. So being a competitive emergency medicine applicant is, to me, an applicant who has passion for emergency medicine and has been able to demonstrate this very clearly, effectively. The means by which you demonstrate can vary. So either you have done this or that, and I'll mention different options of things. But at the end of the day, what will make you competitive for emergency medicine is that your passion is palpable through your application. About the step 1 and step 2 point, many programs in emergency medicine, and I have some data that I would like to show. So many of us may already be familiar with these data platforms, but I think it's very important that if you're a newcomer, somebody who is just considering it, maybe just finishing med school, or you're still even earlier in your med school journey and you're interested in having these conversations on time, that you begin to look at data like that. It just gives you a good frame for what an applicant to emergency medicine looks like. And I'll come back to that. But in emergency medicine, scores are not as big as in some other specialties. For example, in internal medicine, they're actually very, very big on scores, and maybe some surgical specialties as well. So if you have like step 2s over 260, 270s, in fact, these days, 270s more, 260, 270s, you are very favorable, like you're looked at very favorably, and it carries a high mark in their way, in how they weigh candidates. In emergency medicine, if you've scored like that, they're very happy to see a candidate like that. But that will not be the only thing they'll take into consideration when deciding that this is a competitive applicant. An applicant can score 240s and out-compete you completely with 270s if you've not demonstrated that you are a passionate candidate or that you're passionate about emergency medicine. Now, the way that your passion will come through can be in different parts of your application, and the application is very critical in emergency medicine. The application is 3 parts. So it is the ERAS application, which that's what we use in our time. The ERAS application you put together, the letters of recommendation that people write about you, and the personal statement that you write about yourself. These are the 3 things they will put together to know that you are passionate about whatever you're applying to. In the application, there are certain things that they ask for. They want to know your experiences. They want to know what organizations you're part of. They want to know what awards you have won in your life. They want to know what research you have done. In any of these sections, passion about emergency medicine can be demonstrated by having EM allied experiences, by having publications that have been done in emergency medicine related topics, by being a member or, if multiple members of emergency medicine organizations. In each of those aspects, like if you have things that speak to emergency medicine or are allied more to EM related type of topics, they can see that you like EM and you've been doing EM work. In the letters that people would write about you, they also want to see that, one, they're written by people who know what emergency medicine is, and they don't have that same thinking that they have, that EM people are different and we're looking for EM people. So that is why you should have a letter, ideally, written by an emergency medicine physician. That is another way they know that, we're speaking the same language. You have a letter from an emergency medicine person that uses EM terminology to speak to them when saying this person is an emergency medicine interested candidate. And then the third part is the personal statement that you write about yourself, demonstrating in your own words why you're passionate about emergency medicine. I think that at the end of the day, if you truly care about EM, when I look through all these three things, I should see that line of connection that is showing, I said this about EM, I have been doing it about EM, and somebody else said it about me, or has noticed this about me, or can speak on my own behalf and confirm this about me. Those three put together, you are a competitive candidate if, it really is emergency medicine aligned, if I can say it in that way. There are more specific things I know. You want me to talk about maybe the research, you should volunteer with this. We can talk about those more specifically. But at the end of the day is looking at the big picture of what you want to create with your application, and that your application speaks emergency medicine. How you would do that is up to you, and everyone does it differently. My application said something, Simi's application said something completely different, and they were both competitive. If I can say so ourselves, they were both fairly competitive applications for emergency, fairly competitive applications for emergency medicine. I will stop here. Simi, sorry, I have spoken too much. Let me allow you to speak.
No, you haven't spoken too much. I think you've actually said exactly like everything that there is to say. I was just trying to put in some links in the chat because like what Dr. Lawan said earlier, that beyond just hearing things, you actually have to go back and study. You have to go back and read about them. So I was trying to put some links in the chat box. But yeah, that's really it. There is an EM stereotype. People, there is something that they look out for in candidates, and it's not surprising that things like interpersonal skills rank high in how they decide how they will rank you after an interview, or why they really consider your letters of recommendation, because that's what people who have worked with you are saying about you. So it's really about demonstrating that passion, because I remember somebody said that during an interview, someone said that we are like running into a burning building, and there is a there are characteristics in people who will run into a burning building. So there are characteristics they are looking for that you won't get that from scores, and that's why in EM scores are not the most, oh my god, like you're the best thing after bread. So yeah, I don't want to repeat what BC said, but everything BC has said, those three things, when you break it down like that, there is no way you will not see passion outlined across board. And if you see that passion outlined in everything you're doing, in the entries you're filling in your application, and how your personal statements speak, and how your letter writers have spoken about you, then you're definitely a competitive candidate.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Simi and Dr. Beasley. I'm learning. The pause I took there is to complete the statement in my notes. I have to be taking a lot of notes here. So let's move on to the next question. So how I want to ask about the BC mentioned personal statements and all of that. So someone asked that, what did you focus on in your personal statement and interviews that, in your opinion, made you stand out? Like, how important was that? And then I would like to take this question as a peer, since it's something that Dr. BC mentioned, she talked about what people write about you, what do you write about yourself. So someone asked about what you write about yourself. The person is trying to ask on what you focused on while writing a personal statement. I would also want to add the second question with how did you connect with EM physicians or mentors? Hello, can you hear me? The
Yes, we
second
can
question
hear
I would
you.
want to add to that, to pair up with that, is how did you connect with EM physicians or mentors before applying? Any tips for mentorship or guidance from someone you don't know personally? So I want us to take the question as a twin before we move on to the others.
Would you like to go first?
Were the
Okay.
questions clear? There were two actually. So do you want to share it or do you want to talk about it together?
Okay, so to recap, you mentioned mentorship and how you connect with people who you do not know before. And what
Yes,
was the
and then
first part of the question?
what did you include in your personal statement?
Okay. Okay. Well, so to keep it short, my personal statement was really just a story about me and how I found myself in EM. And I think that's what your personal statement is supposed to be, because I mean it's a personal statement. And you're supposed to use it to demonstrate why you want to do that specialty that you're interested in. People say things like, you want your first paragraph to be catchy. I think that plays more on psychology, because usually if something catches your eye, you're more likely to go through it. So people spend a lot of time building that first paragraph to make sure it really captures your audience, and I would definitely recommend that. But it was really a story about me doing an EM rotation and falling in love with it, about me deciding to pursue EM even though it was not yet a specialty, recognized specialty in Nigeria, about me finding people like DC. I'm not kidding. About me, it was really a story about me, and I just told it in a concept in a in a stepwise manner of beginning to how I found myself. So it was really just a story. And I think my personal statement did well, because I got comments on it from during my interviews. I had a couple of program directors mention it. And again, it's one of the reasons why you know that these things written about you, your personal statement, your letters of recommendation, is so important. They are things that they really look at before considering whether to invite you for an interview. And then about networking, see, passion will always show. If you're very interested in something, you will go above and beyond for that thing. And that includes doing things you're scared of, like talking to people who you don't know. But you see, as human beings, nobody likes being used. So when you come at people and you give them the impression that you want to use them for your own personal gains, it can be a bit of a turn off. So you can't approach someone and say, oh yeah, I'm very interested in connecting with you. I can see that you're this and this and that. And then you didn't slide in, like, oh, I see myself applying for this. Then I can already piece them together and say, okay, you want to apply for the match, and then you're probably considering that I'll be a great letter writer. But you've not given me an opportunity to meet you as a person. So I always recommend that you find people who your interests actually align, where you can find something in common. For instance, I'm very big on pre-hospital care and improving pre-hospital care. So it's easy to have conversations with people who are working in EMS, because I'm able to say that I'm actually interested in EMS. This is what I've been doing in EMS. I can see that you're doing this. Do you mind if I talk to you about this? We can talk about these things. They can see your passion. They can see your interest. And that way, anytime something comes up in that area, they will remember you and be like, oh yeah, I came across this. Is this something that interests you? And that way you start building your relationship. But when your first interaction gives the impression of, oh, I want to use you because, I'm going to be applying in the future, it might not really be a good place to start from. That's just my own opinion, especially when you're talking to strangers. So I think find an area you have in common, build on that, build a relationship. And then when people see that, okay, I think somebody is but when people see that you're consistent in your passion, like you're not swinging between options today and tomorrow, they can see that hard work. They would naturally be interested, and sometimes they might even be the one asking you, "Hi, how's this going?"
Thank you. Dr. BC, would you like to add on that?
I Oh, I echo everything that Simi has said. I mean, all very correct, accurate points. Well, very well made. Just to say a little bit about networking as well. So I know when it comes to networking, many people don't like it. And a lot of people have cold feet about starting networking. They'd be like, this networking thing, everybody's always, is there no other way I can match without it? Like, it's not my personality. I don't like to meet people. And I say this as someone who was very much, and like, I am like one of the most introverted people I know for myself. Emergency Medicine Interest Group, EMIG, is what actually brought me out to even meet people in the first place. Many times throughout my medical school experience, I had very small, very tiny circle of people that I knew and I talked to. I was not someone who went out or spoke to people a lot. And networking was necessary for the work we wanted to do in Emergency Medicine Interest Group. It was not about matching as at that time. And so I think that is maybe the luck that Simi and myself had in the sense that because we were starting EMIG and we needed speakers for things, we needed people to...
They're still discussing it. It doesn't look like it.
Somebody's mic is unmuted. Okay, thank you. I lost my train of thoughts, sorry. Because we were looking for people who would help us with Emergency Medicine Interest Group, who would teach at events. That is how we were approaching people. So we're like, oh, we really need you to speak. We saw your work, we read your papers, we think it's very nice, and it goes with what we're trying, and the speaker we're trying to find, the profile we're looking for. And so we were meeting lots and lots of people. We go for conferences, just excited about emergency medicine and happy to be there, honestly. And maybe some of your idols, like people you had read about or seen their work online, and you meet them and you're just excited to just meet them. It had nothing to do with much, genuinely speaking, as at that time. But because we've had a few years, and it's realistically like a great benefit now looking back, that genuinely really helped us in our own networking journey. We had just been building a trail of people that we knew, that knew us, knew the work that we're doing, and really were excited about us coming also for residency. And so when we approached people saying, oh, we are applying now, there was a lot of positive like buy-in. Yes, we want to help you. Yes, we're so excited you're finally applying. Yes, oh my God, they're so happy that you're applying and you want to come here. And so that was how it was for us. And that's why I say all of this to say that when you think about networking, it is not, it can be done as a means to like, I want to meet people for meeting people, so I know people for this specific thing. But a lot of times networking is done unintentionally through work. When you're working on research programs, when you're volunteering at a conference to be an assistant with something, you are always meeting people in very different ways. If you go for a rotation, you are meeting people. If you go for this, if you do that. So if you are someone who is also actually focused on the work of emergency medicine and building all of that experience, you will be networking because you have to. And so if you're someone who is shying away from it because of that, think about it as you doing the things that you need to do to be ready for March. Like, participating in research projects for this, doing this and that. And when you're doing all of that, you're also meeting people and building a network of people who can help you. That's one point I wanted to make about networking. The second point I wanted to make about networking is that if you think about us as medical students in Nigerian medical schools, you wake up every day, you take your bath, you go to classes, and you see your lecturers every single day. They see you too. Even if they've never called your name out, many of them can recognize you by face, at least during the time of your medical student experience. Same with the American students there, and even more because their system genuinely in many institutions look out for students. They have their mentors, they have people who are employed just to help them get into the match. And so because of all of that effort, they are significantly advantaged by just going to medical school in the US, and they have built networks all around them as their lecturers in their schools, in the specialties of interest that they have. And that is the gap you are trying to close by building networks. Unfortunately for you, it may never be as flamboyant as that of a medical student in the US. Every lecturer who has taught them went through medical school and residency and had a class of other classmates who have also gone around the United States, all in different, places of leadership. And so that is the connectedness they have. If they spoke to one lecturer in their class, he probably knows, or she probably knows, people across the states in different specialties. So even if they had just one mentor from their medical school, that person can open them to a much wider range of people that are all based in the US and working there, and probably at that level, also at similar levels of leadership. And you're trying to close that gap. So that's what you need to think about. You are coming from somewhere that you have no record and nothing traceable, and you want to have a form of footprint of people who can speak on your behalf. And that is why networking is so important, for many other reasons. So I'll stop here because I tend to speak a lot about things. Please forgive me. I'll stop here so that we can move to the next question. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Titia, Dr. Simi. That was really really eye-opening. And yeah, networking. I think it's a life-saving skill in this professional space, whether it's applications or wherever it is that you find yourself. Definitely one skill you want to pick up and continue building upon. So my next question to you is, did you secure a US clinical experience? And what kind of experiences, in your opinion, does emergency medicine programs value more? How does one get emergency medicine rotations without having to break the bank? So if you can shed more light on why that's important and all of that.
I think I should let BC go first on this particular question.
Okay. Long story short, we both did not have the standardized letter of evaluation, which is the SLO, in the way that it was required. So the ESLO is what is required. It's the most important part of your application, genuinely speaking. And me and Simi did not have it. So it was a massive red flag on our applications, to be very honest with you all. The only way you can get an ESLO is to do a rotation as a medical student in the United States. Some very few people get away with not doing a rotation in the United States. And I'm talking about like 1 in 1,000 people. So please don't bank on this. Some very few people are able to. I've heard some stories, like I've spoken to some people and they told me some drastic things they did. It's a kind of opportunity that does not just happen for people every day. And they were able to get SLOs outside after they had graduated from med school. But generally speaking, you can only get an ESLO doing a rotation as a medical student in a program in the US that has a residency training program. If you do not do that, you are going to have to supplement with other forms of recommendation letters, either the normal letter of recommendation or something they call the OSLO. But I won't go into that deeply. If you're still a medical student in Nigeria, you want to apply to emergency medicine in the United States and you can afford to go to the US, I beg you, don't waste the opportunity to do a rotation while still a student and get an ESLO. There are many institutions that will take you. Many of them only require that you may have taken step 1, but it's not all of them. A lot of them will tell you that you should have taken step 1, and they're very strict about it. A few of them may not require you to take step 1, but they may need like your school to do some things, to sign some letters, blah, blah, blah. Every institution is different. And so you're going to need to do a lot of searching and research to find institutions or to reach out to them to ask questions if they will take you, blah, blah, blah. But if you've taken step 1 for any reason while still in med school, like you're in 600 level, your graduation data has not reached and you can afford to go for a rotation and taking step 1, you are very much liable to get a rotation in the United States, and it would really help your application, like significantly help your application. You would need to struggle a lot less if you have an ESLO than people who do not. If you've graduated from medical school, is it all doom and gloom? No, because we too, myself and Simi, graduated from medical school without any rotation in the US. You may have to do some other things and try some other things out. First of all, for you, networking is even more critical, even more critical. You may also be able to go for observership experiences, which is when you go, they will not allow you to touch patients. You'll just be observing. But some people may be nice and give you a letter or a different kind of SLO for that experience. So those are some things you can use to supplement. About what specific institutions you can go to. It's not what I cannot just start mentioning you can go to subsidy, you can go to hospital. There are many places you can go to. It's very dependent on your school. It's very dependent on your level. It's also dependent on whether you have step 1 or 2. It's dependent on a lot of things. So it's hard to answer that question where exactly you can go. But I would say that if you're still a medical student, you can afford it. Please try to get it. That's the best advice I can give. Seems
100%, 110%, because you will actually see a bit. You will go through more trouble if you don't have a slow. If you check that survey that NRM, the match survey that they got responses from program directors, the number one thing, 92%, that's a very high score. The number one thing that program directors look for are your letters of recommendation, and for EM, it's the slow. Slows are so incredibly important. Please, if you can do it, don't say, "Oh yeah, you heard about some people who got it." Nah, if you can do it, please do it. By all means, please do it. If it is now, if you're really backed against the wall, you have no choice whatsoever, then we can now talk about, okay, how else can I buffer and make up for that red flag?
Thank you very much, Dr. Simi. But I would like for you to continue that new line of thought. You said how else? I think Dr. Basin mentioned that networking helps. But how else again? And then observership. So how else again does one buffer, especially for international medical graduate that have not had a slow before? I think someone even asked in the platform we created for people to ask questions. Someone asked that is it advisable to use Nigerian physicians for our slow as a mean to cut US observership costs? So please, if you can just continue that line of costs so that you let people know what they can do now that they've graduated medical school or they are post NYSC or whatever and are trying to apply, and that is quite critical in their application.
Okay. So, well, I will just use our own personal experiences, DC and I. So we did not have this flow because, again, we couldn't do a rotation in medical school. So if you go through the content of the slow, what it addresses, you would see that it's best to have it answered by somebody who has worked with you, because it essentially is a tool that compares you with your peers. And then it also checks how um basically who you are as a person. It's a very, very elaborate tool, and it's a very great tool for evaluation. And so I'm saying that to say that for me, in choosing who would write my Oslo, that's if you can't get an Islo, then you can get an Oslo. We looked at it like half a loaf is better than no bread, even though it's more like quarter of a loaf is better than no bread. But then we had to get Oslos. So my choices for an Oslo, or for the people who write my Oslo, I had two Oslos, were Nigerian consultants. And it had to be Nigerian consultants because nobody that has not worked with me clinically will be able to answer those questions in a way that will portray me as someone that wants to, like someone that you should choose as someone as your incoming resident. So when you go through those questions and you have a link to that in the chat box, you will see the kind of questions that they're asking and how they're asking you to rank and what they want you to talk about the applicant. So you know that this has to be somebody that knows you, and that will guide your choice. So the thing is not about the nationality of the person who writes your letters of recommendation, whether you're writing the traditional letters or your Oslo. It's not so much about the nationality of the person, but the content. And there is a way you can tell that this is not being fabricated. You can actually tell when you read these things. And so you want it to be from somebody who knows you, who has worked with you, and who can speak good things about you. Um, for the rotations, to make up for not having a standard medical student rotation, I know BC and I did a telemedicine rotation back in 2021 during COVID period where we had some EM tele-rotations, but fortunately those are no more. And those ones existed because of COVID. So we're just lucky to have been able to do that at that time. And then BC was also able to go, hey, I'm speaking for BC, but sorry. Well,
It's
BC was able to
fine.
do BC was able to do this MGLEX rotation. It's like a rotation for physicians who are in countries where EM is still being developed. And then you can come to the US, rotate around some hospitals in Chicago for a month and then go back home. So it's not a US clinical experience in the true sense of the word. So you're not going to get a flow from it. But then it can be something to talk about in your interviews that you're a bit familiar with the emergency medicine system. So those were some other options that we had to explore. And then again, you will have to try a lot harder to make up for not having a slow. So like we said earlier, if you can, please do. But if you then really cannot, then you have to get very solid OSLOs, preferably from people who are in emergency medicine. And if you open that survey of program directors, it's actually there, preferably from people who are in emergency medicine. And then you also want to make up for it by having rotations in emergency medicine, preferably a rotation in the US if you can. But again, but just try. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Simi, for shedding more light on that. Now, a lot of people actually asked a lot of questions about this, so I believe we all have our answers now. So moving on, I would like to ask about I'd like to ask something about the application that Dr. BC actually mentioned. You talked about research and publications. So, aside the recommendations, the slows, and what have you, what's the role? How important is research and publications? And when we talk about the publications, which type of publications? I think someone even asked that would case reports and abstracts even be enough? So, would um, want to ask, can you shed more light on research and publication? Is there a minimum? Is there a maximum? And what is it? Is it the quality of the research or the impact the research has? Please, if you could shed more light on that.
Okay. Let me. Can you hear me, please? Sorry, does anyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry. I thought my system was frozen. If it's okay by you, do you mind me sharing something on my screen?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, let me just share this. I don't know if everyone can see my screen here.
Yes, we can.
So, okay, so this is a document that is released every year after the March results are out, a couple of months after. The one for 2025, which is my Simi set and my set, is not yet out. So this is the one of 2024, because this data takes a lot more time for them to put together. So they released the preliminary results, but this one isn't out yet. It's called Charting Outcomes. And I know Simi and myself and many of our friends who went through the March, we read this document we almost religiously, like every year it comes out, we look at it to see what has changed, what is updated, what is changing in the landscape, just to know, because it's very good information to have. So these are the statistics for emergency medicine, the people who matched in 2024 and the people who also did not match in 2024. Now, this gives you what the average is. Of course, you know that the average means some people had less than this and still matched, and some people had more and also still matched, and also same ways and did not match. Like some people would have had less, didn't match. So people have more of this and didn't match. It gives you what the average step, this is not relevant anymore, what the average step 2 score was of the people who matched versus the people who did not match. It gives you the average research experiences, the mean number of abstracts, presentations, and publications they had. Just some very good piece of information that you should also look at. This does not determine whether you will match or not. I have to say that, so nobody will take this as like a Bible of what you should have before coming for the match. You cannot get anything as, you know, perfect as on here. Don't overstress yourself. However, it's good thinking to have about what the average emergency medicine applicant looks like. So the average person who matched to emergency medicine in the year 2024 as a non-US IMG, which is many of us, except you're an American citizen here and you're just going to medical school in Nigeria. So you are not under this category, but as many of us who are Nigerian by citizenship and also in medical schools in Nigeria, we fall under this category of non-US IMGs. And so the average score that they have is 239 in 2024. 2025, it may have gone up. The mean number of research experiences they have is 2.2. The mean number of abstract presentations and publications all put together is 8. So it's not 0, okay? The mean is not 0, meaning that lots of people, at least a good number of people, are coming with some form of abstract presentation or publication on their application. And hence, I would say that having nothing on that part of the application may not be a good look, considering the fact that many applicants are coming with something on that aspect of the application. You may not want to get exactly 8, but you may want to have, you know, a number. There are some specialties where this mean is like 30. There are specialties where it's like 40, 50. Genuinely speaking, surgical specialties, some of them have very high numbers. EM just has 8. So you should have something on that on that area. If you've submitted 2 abstracts before, you have 1 publication and you've presented 1 time, that comes to a total of what? 4. And you have 4 items as your total of abstracts, presentation, and publications. You don't need to do a crazy number like that. I set a target for myself of 10. I ended up having slightly more than that, but I had a target of 10 for myself. I had a target of 10 for myself as at the time I was preparing for applications, okay? And I thought it was, if I divided 10 between, okay, 2 abstracts, 2 presentations, or like 3 abstracts, 3 presentations, 2 publications, that kind of thing, or just a small numbers across all of them. So I'll advise you to look at it from that point of view. Quality also really matters over quantity. And so in emergency medicine specifically, you don't have to just be chasing publication, joining everything. Joining publishing news where they're putting papers out every day that you don't even know anything about. It's not recommended in EM. If you find 1 or 2, 3 experiences that are relevant to you, the topic is also relevant for emergency medicine, and it's an interesting thing that you enjoy, go ahead and join the project. You can present something out of that same project or publish the paper at the end of the day, and you get 2 items. So in this section as well, repetition does not matter. So your 2 abstracts can also be the same topic that was the publication. They don't have a problem with that, okay? They just count all your entries. It doesn't matter if the same paper that you publish is what you presented at another conference. They don't care, all right? So they can be repetition and it's also fine. So quality matters. Don't chase too much. Have a good number of items, a couple of items on your list. Try not to keep it empty. So even if you're thinking of applying in the next cycle, even if you can just get 1 or 2 presentations, 1 or 2 posters, even if you are not able to publish, at least have 1 or 2 items on your application. It will do you better having something than having nothing. And same thing for other things. So many people also ask, oh, does a master's degree matter? I mean, you can look at the data. 20.5% of people who had a second degree, 21 point. So is this significant? I mean, it's up to you to look at what's the significant. In fact, the people who did not match had a higher percent of having a second degree than people who match. So is increasing number of the additional degrees a positive, or is it even a negative for you? I can't say. So you can answer, it's not a perfect answer, but you can give you some ideas on what you need to worry about versus what is not that critical, and what is the number you should be looking at if you wanted to put together something. I'll leave it like that for
now. Sorry, before you take off your script, I think there was also on volunteer experiences there I saw.
Yes.
And actually it's higher for people who matched than people who did not. So I guess we'll take that as a positive.
You can. You can. The sample size is also pretty small. So compared to how many thousands of people who applied and went through the match, it's a small number of people who choose to report their data. You have to give them permission for them to report your data. So not many people give them. Please, next year, people should give them, all of you who apply, please give them permission so that the data gets better and better. Many people are always scared of giving their data, but nobody will know if it's you or not. So it really doesn't matter. But we have a very small sample size, so it's hard to really say. But you can see the mean number of volunteering experiences is 3. Many people have, the mean is that people volunteered for 3 experiences. So we can say the average EM applicant who matched had 3 volunteering experiences on their application. You know, that is what it is.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. BC. Dr. Lawan, you wanted to ask something?
Yes. So we were discussing about standardized letter of evaluation earlier, and recommendation letter, and how to get slow and something like that. Okay. So is it advisable to maybe you have a mentor or someone you have networked with that maybe you did some research work together or some other work together? Is it advisable to reach to that kind of mentors, even if, for example, let's say they are in the US and you wanted them to contribute toward your application? Is it advisable to have them write a slow or a recommendation letter? And how valuable is a simple recommendation letter in the whole application process? Sorry, I'm dragging us back a bit. And concerning this research experience and publication, okay, having what's the difference? Categorically, what's the difference between a research experience and publications, presentations, and abstracts? Does abstracts that were accepted and not presented count? That's one. And will you consider adding a published abstract even if you did not present as a publication? That's 2. And does engaging in a research work or project work, something that was published, even if you are not part of it, how do you capture it? Do you just capture it as a research experience, or you can include it as, I don't know, I guess it would have to be a research experience. All right, so these are just my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Simi, would you like me to still share my screen? Just to confirm.
Yes, I think you should share your screen so you can use that in answering the questions.
Yes.
But I'll just quickly answer the first part of your question about somebody who you've worked with on a research. And I'll just say that because I had a very exact experience. So I had 2 OSOs and 2 letters of recommendation. So you can have up to 4 entries. I maximized all 4. And then for my letters of recommendation, I chose to get them from people who were faculty in the US, and one of which was somebody who had worked in a research position with as a postdoc. So that was and why I chose it that way is I couldn't use him to write a slow for me because, like I said earlier, if you take a minute to go through the content of the slow, of what is expected to be filled in the slow, because it's a very objective assessment. It's like, is it on a scale of 1 to 5? It's very objective. It will give you an idea of the kind of person that can fill this very well for you. And you won't see this. Ideally, you should waive your right to see it. So you won't see this, but you need to know that this will have to come from somebody who can put in a very good word for me. So based on what was needed, I had to get my OSLOs from my Nigerian consultant, and I got my letters of recommendation from EM faculty in the US. Of which one of my OSLOs happened to be from an EM consultant, by the way. Actually, both of them were kind of from EM consultants. One was like an IM consultant who was the head of A&E. So it was still very tied to EM. And I had to be very specific about the people who were going to write that OSLO for me because I wanted them to be credible to anybody in EM because they had to have credible credentials that anybody in EM would be like, yes, you definitely know what you were looking for in that candidate, that you're able to see this so they can take their word for it. But then it has to come from somebody who has worked with you. Just take a minute and go through the content. It will give you an idea of who you should ask to write it for you. But your letters of recommendation can come from anybody who knows you to a fair degree.
Yeah. just to add to what Simi has said about my own, I also had 4. I also filled the total 4. 2 were from Nigeria and 2 were from the US. So the 2 that were from Nigeria were the Oslos. So the Oslo is, like Simi said, the alternative to the standard slow. It's not the perfect one, but they will still manage it. And I got 1 from medical school and 1 from house job. House job is a solid place to get a good Oslo from because you've really worked clinically and people can comment on your clinical skills and ability. The one from my medical school was from the head of accident and emergency in University of Lagos, Lutz, rather, in Lutz. And then the one from my housemanship was from internal medicine. Internal medicine, internal medicine, sha. Then the 2 from the United States were letters of recommendation because, of course, I did not work clinically in the US, so they cannot comment on my clinical skills. So they wrote normal letters of recommendation. In those ones, I chose to focus on other things that I had been doing outside of clinicals. So the 2 from Nigeria were strictly clinical letters. They talk about clinical performance, clinical knowledge-based skills, attitude in the hospital, patient care, blah, blah, blah. While the ones from the US focused on things like research, focused on things like leadership, focused on things like other forms of commitment to emergency medicine in other aspects. So those ones spoke about other things. So that's how I chose to divide my letters.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I don't know. There are some other forms of slow I saw on the website when I look at it some days ago. I think there is the non-residency base, and then there is the subspecialty slow. Do you have any information on those and how they work?
Okay, just to be quick, in summary, there's a description given underneath them about what each of them mean, but the simple way to put it is that the number 1 type, all of them is in decreasing order of importance. The number 1 type is the E-slow. It has to be in the US. You have to be a medical student. It has to be in a hospital that has residency training ongoing. The next level is the same thing. The only difference is that it's not an emergency medicine rotation. It's also in the US. You're also a medical student. It's also in a place that has residency program, but it is in a subspecialty of EM. So it's in ultrasound or EMS. You're doing your rotation in something that comes out of emergency medicine, a subspecialty slow. It's also highly regarded because many Americans will call one slow, one subspecialty slow is fine. It's also well regarded. Third category is from the US. You may or may not be a medical student, but it is a program that does not have a residency program. So it's a non-residency program hospital. It has an emergency department and an emergency medicine physician, but they're not doing residency training there. That's third category. Fourth category is not from the US, an emergency physician or any other type of physician anywhere else that is giving you that slow. I think that is, Shimi, I don't know if I've made a mistake in them, but that is how I remember it in my head. But I hope I have.
That's very accurate.
Okay.
Very accurate.
Okay, then. Sorry, then the next question that he asked about the difference, like the publication, the research, the abstract, and about if abstract submitted still count.
If abstract submitted still count, yes, it counts because it has its own category.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So,
all right.
Yeah, it counts because it has its own category. I don't know if you see my screen. Very, very quickly, I'll just show. Me and Simi were also talking about this yesterday of showing this on our screen, so you know what it looks like. The best thing you will do is to, at the end of this talk, to take a look at it deeply, like just scroll through it, everything, start to finish, to know what they're asking you for. But if you look at this says submitted or accepted journal articles or abstracts. So if you've submitted, but it's not yet published, the data has not reached, they're still accepting it, but it has a different category. So it's acceptable.
Okay. Oh,
Yes.
thank you very much for that, for those answers. Today is really an eye-opener. So moving on to the next question. Someone said that, how did you approach selecting programs to apply? Did you use any particular resources to help your application strategy? Was there any website that helped or any program that helped your application strategy?
Let me call Simi's attention. Simi, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, sure. But sorry, can you say the question again? You mentioned websites that we use because it was a lot in one question. That's why. Sorry, please just come again so I'll make sure I don't miss anything.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I said that the person asked, how did you approach selecting programs to apply for? That did you use any particular resources, websites, programs, etc., to help guide your application strategy?
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you can do this without using applications like software. I don't think it's possible because you have to use data. I 100% use statistics over emotions in choosing where to apply because I was very, I mean, you have to acknowledge that you're a foreign graduate. Uh, it can be a bit delusional in pursuing your dream, but you have to balance that with facts as well. So there's a place for both of them. But I said that to say that for me, statistics was very hard. Like it was something that I really took into consideration in choosing where to apply. So in creating my program list, I had to look at over the past many years, the percentage of IMGs they have taken, and out of those IMGs, how many were non-US IMGs. These are very important things for me to consider. Okay, so mic is unmuted.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Oh no, no problem at all. Thank you. So yes, again, and I always personally believe that less is more. I only used Residency Explorer for Residency Explorer has a fantastic database of programs and almost everything that you need to find to know about a program. So I use Residency Explorer and also the website of those programs. So I filtered Residency Explorer will let you filter programs. So I filtered them based on who's offering visas. And then after filtering them, I then went through each of them and checked the IMG acceptance rate. Then after going through the IMG acceptance rate and creating a smaller amount of programs, then I went to their website, checked, sent cold emails to people in the residency, whether it's residents themselves or occasionally sometimes faculty. Um, but it was mostly statistics. So even though at the end of the day I did apply to a couple of programs who had like 0% INGs, like I said, there is also a place for being like, you know, can put in some. It might also be that 1%, but then that should just be a handful. I'm big on data, so I think you should let data guide you. And but yeah, there are other ones. You have FRIDA, that's the one by AMA, American Medical Association. Doximity to me is more of a tool for when you want to rank programs that you've interviewed at, rather than you choosing the programs um to apply to. Then Emerald Match is actually very good. It's a good one because it's EM specific. But again, everything you're going to find in Emerald Match, you'd also find in Residency Explorer. So I mean, if you have one tool that works, this is not an ad, by the way. But if you have one tool that works, then might as well just use it. So yeah. But then that was it for me. It was purely statistics, and I used Residency Explorer in retrieving those statistics, and then I went on their website to confirm, and then interacted with as many residents as I could, and sometimes faculty.
Wow, thank you very much. I would also like to say that there's something I've learned, something that have not been said directly in all of this is actually the courage to, although you mentioned the whole networking, but the courage you put out there, like to just, send out these cold emails, network with this person, get talking with this person, get talking with that person. Like it's really been very like very bold of you, and like it's It's really something we can learn from, truth be told. So I'll be moving on to the next part of the question, which is also associated with this. Are there any particular challenges you faced being a non-US IMG? Is there any particular challenge that you faced simply because you're not from that side of the world? And can you shed more light on it?
The status of being a non-US IMG is the number one challenge. I mean, you can't run away from it. It shows up in many ways. I'm telling you.
Is this stigma?
It's not even a stigma. It's just a less desirable category. It's not like, oh, there's a bad thing we think about when we think of IMGs. You're just not the pick of the litter, unfortunately. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, I think about it all the time. I'm like, if it was the University of Ibadan, I wanted to go for it, and they say they're taking people, only people from Ivory Coast, and they're not again Nigerians. It would be a problem to Nigeria now if you think about it. I mean, I think so. People would eventually start talking about it. So the peak of the litter is an American graduate, and understandably so. They have taken lots of loans to school in that environment. That is their home. That is where they should be working. And so they are the go-to candidates for residency slots. To outcompete an American graduate for a slot, especially at a competitive program, is an uphill battle. There are many things, there are many factors that go into them making that decision. In fact, I'm sure when they sit in their meetings, they have to convince themselves that on every possible category they can think about, you are the better applicant. And this I say specifically for competitive programs. Not like literally, like not every program has the same level of competitiveness. It's a numbers game. Some programs will have thousands of applicants, some will have in the hundreds. And you see that data on Residency Explorer. If you want to look at it, you see number of applications going per program. So there's a lot of things. That in itself is one challenge. But aside that, Nigeria is the second challenge. Nigeria, I don't even know. Even from just getting into the USMLE journey, Simi and I, we faced lots of shiggy. When we graduated from medical school, we did not get our degrees, like our certificates, for almost a year plus, more than a year. And that was why we could not take our step one that we had said that there was a problem. They said that they did not make the certificate. They gave some other people, but they did not make our own. And so we're going to have to come back whenever the strike was done. And when the strike was done is when they will now start making the remaining certificates. And so it pushed our USMLE by over 1 year because we now have certificates to verify ourselves. Things that only would happen in Nigeria, not even having a USMLE exam writing center in Nigeria, that you have to travel outside of the country, incurring a lot more cost. There are just so many challenges of being an IMG. But for me, the biggest one was finance. It influenced many of the decisions I had to make, like even coming to the United Kingdom. I came for a master's degree that was fully funded, meaning that my school fees was paid for, and I was a stipend student. They were giving me money to live, but I started working before I started my master's degree. Before our class lecture started, I already started working in the United Kingdom because I had to raise money for the match. The stipend was not going to be able to cut it because it was just for my living expenses. And so finance is a massive thing. But if I know that everyone comes from very different backgrounds, and some people may have that support. If you have that support, that is a massive setback already removed, challenge or is already removed from you, and you may be able to actually get some other opportunities that some other people may not. Like if I get a rotation for now and I can't get visa or I can't fly, big problem. But some other people, already have visas down, maybe because they travel more frequently and things like that, and it will really advantage you for the match. So if in any ways that you come from a background where you don't have some things, you may have to take a longer route, either waiting a few years back. Some people will take PLAB and go to the UK. Some people will work as MOs for some years to be able to raise the money. So finance could be a massive setback. In fact, some people don't even consider USMLE journey because of money. They will tell you, if I remember where I come from, the US journey is not for me. It's the PLAB journey that is more, palatable. I have many friends that have told me that. And so they did not even bother trying. But now, even with the way the PLAB, pathway is also changing. Many people are opening their minds now to the US journey and saying, okay, let's try it and see how it goes. So I would say finance is a massive, massive challenge. The second one is the slow. I'm sure Cindy will have some other challenges to mention, but I'm sure she agrees with this too. So the slow is a big challenge. And if you can get it, I honestly 100% recommend you getting a slow. Have people match without slows? Yes, I match without a slow, but we know what we faced to even be able to have made it through. We thank God. But there were many programs that read applications, and I'll say for myself and Simi likewise, there are many programs that read applications and gave feedback that the only problem was that they have an institutional policy that they will not consider without a slow. And so your application was better than applications that they had to take on because you did not have a slow. Different programs have different policies. So people are very strict about it for fairness in the journey. Like they want to be fair to every candidate. And so what they ask from one, they will ask from all. So I will tell you that if you can get a slow in any way possible, please try to get it. It will remove a massive issue that you will have with lots and lots of programs in the US because everybody wants to ensure that they're screening with similar strategies. For we that match, me and Simi, I'll speak for myself here. I will never call Simi's name into this. For me that matched, the program literally said, we just want to take a chance. Like, it's not as if we take people without slow. We don't take people without slows. They consider people with slows. But just because of every other thing that we are seeing, let's just take a chance on this candidate, and all the other programs we also interviewed at. Like, it was just people pushing themselves out of their comfort zone to want to try it and say, okay, can we actually make this work for this candidate? If you have one, you've not even been that, point at in the first place. So, biggest challenges I faced.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Simi, any particular issues you faced because you're a non-US IMG?
Yeah, I think it's like exactly what BC has said. You're unfortunately a less desirable stock. And if you go through some of the things PDs look at before they decide who to interview and who to rank, you see things like visa status, ability to work in the US without a visa. Those things already are not in your favor, unfortunately. But then the biggest ones, especially now, like I started this journey when Naira was a dollar was like 415 Naira. And then I am still, I mean, there are post-match expenses, but like currently we're doing a dollar at 1,600. It Finances can be a very big, big, big factor. And the thing about finances now being a big factor is, of course, you have to find a way to conform or find a way to adjust to your new realities. And sometimes it means that take you might take things. Okay, let me just use an example. For instance, now you see last year or this cycle that just matched, we found more people applying to fewer number of programs. Finance was a big factor in that. So we spent more time researching programs that, okay, I do have a chance with this program rather than I really want to go here. It was more, can you take me? And then people spent more time doing that, more time utilizing signals, rather than the typical way IMGs do of applying to a broad range of 200 plus programs. Almost nobody did that the last cycle. $1 was 1,500. Was a lot of money. And except you do have a lot of you don't have to work for money and you can take it, then that's good for you. But just like BC, you will see that EM is not full of IMGs. It's not the most IMG populated space, and that can be a challenge. So you do need someone to take a chance on you, and that's actually what happened for both of us. That's the experience that we had in our interviews, and that's the experience we've had through this process. So those challenges you have as an IMG are things that just I think finance is the only thing that is individualized, depending on your pockets, but for the other things like you needing a visa, most people will need a visa. The fact that you trained outside the US, they're expecting that you may have some challenges integrating inside. Those are things you can't really do so much about, but they just come with being an IMG, and it just means that you have to show yourself to be worth the risk. It's also a risk on them too, because they are going to sponsor a visa if anything goes on with that visa process. So it's also a risk on them. So you kind of have to convince them that it's worth the risk, and it's what the paperwork it would take them to bring you over, that you're worth everything. And I know you're worth it. So yeah.
Okay, so we're soon going to wrap up. Yeah, Dr. Laura wants to say something.
Thank you, Dr. Lama, and Dr. Simi and DC. Thank you so much. So, I think while you are discussing these challenges, I remember something, especially with regards to selecting programs and getting interviews, after application and everything. How well does knowing people in the programs you are applying to, how well does it affect your application, and how can you effectively use your signals? I know that, like, recently there is this concept of program signaling and everything. How do you advise someone to maximize his chances with that? And is it also possible to get networks, mentors or somebody else to talk to these programs on your behalf and something like that? I think this is my question. Thank you.
Okay. If there are programs that you already know people, lucky you, because it helps genuinely. I mean, all the networking thing we've been saying this morning, that is the combination when it comes to match. When it comes to the outcome of the match, how you perform in the match, if you've had networks and those networks are in different hospitals across the US, residency hospitals, very helpful. I'll just very quickly summarize the strategy that I used. Simi can also speak about her own personal experience about that, but this is what I did. So like I mentioned earlier, we had been building a network of people because of EMIG. We had been working with people, we had been speaking to people, we had been working with different organizations and things like that. So we knew people, but they did not know that we were going into the match, at least before this year. And so when the year was starting, last year, 2024, when the year was starting, that was because I was applying in September of 2024. By the beginning of the year was when I first started mentioning to many of them that I was applying to the match. Okay, so these were people I already knew and been working with, but they didn't know I was in the US journey. So I reached out to many of them via whatever platforms that we had been communicating more frequently, either with email, some of them on WhatsApp, depending on how we converse. And I let them know my intentions to apply for the match. It was a lengthy message. I told them, what I had done so far. So at that time, I taking my step 1, my step 2 results was out. I was also ECFMG certified. So I mentioned all of this, taking my step 1, I'm taking my step 2 as well, and got my ECFMG certificate. I'm planning to apply in this cycle coming up September, blah, 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 blah. For the ones that I was very interested in the hospital that they work in, I hinted on it that, I'm very interested in the institution where they work at, and I wanted more information about how to go about it. For all of them, I asked them for more conversation, a meeting or some form of chat. We went on to schedule. I literally had a meeting every week for the next 4 months that was coming up. So I would have Zoom chats, and we'll talk about it. Everybody will ask questions. Okay, so what did you get to step 2? Okay, you've done that. Okay, have you done anything here? People asked very specific questions. So we'll ask you, everybody asks, have you done a rotation? No. They will always tell you, try and get a rotation, try and get this. And then many of them will offer something. Some will say, oh, when you have your personal statement and this ready, send it to me so I can review that for you. Some offer things like, oh, I would like to write you a letter of recommendation. Do you need a letter for me? I can write you a letter of recommendation. Some will say, I can speak to my program for you. I can talk to my program director. Some will even connect you with the program directors, and some people did that as well. So some will just send an email introducing you to a program director and things like that. So lots and lots of conversation. I was meeting with people weekly for months, residents. I spoke to people across all cadres, so faculty members, program directors, assistant program directors, residents at different levels, starting residents, middle residents, second years, senior chief residents as well, gathering a lot of information. Many people gave lots of advice. And at the end of the day, I knew those that were going to be very core and close to me based on the responses they give. So somebody said, I want to meet with you every month up until March, like until the result is out. And we're having monthly meetings. Some other people, oh, let's be having WhatsApp calls, WhatsApp chats. Some other people, oh, just email me when you have like a new information on a new updates. They asked all for different ways of keeping the conversation going so they can be carried along. And so after all of the conversation with them up until like April, May, by June, when my personal story, I was writing my personal story, July, August, actually, more correctly, around August, when I was writing my personal statement, finally, I sent it out to many of these people because we have all been in conversation. This is my personal statement. Would you be able to give me your feedback? This is my errors application. They gave feedback. They all read it. And they were now like in your application is about to drop. Let's get ready. And so September came, I submitted my application. As at this time, many people will now say, once you submit, let me know. Once you submit, let me know. So once you submit your application, you're sending them like a chat or like an update. Oh, I've submitted my application to your hospital now. And they will go on to speak to somebody in that hospital or like converse with the program director or email somebody in the hospital for them to consider you favorably. For some places, it did not work. After all this effort, we did nothing came out of it. And so some of them gave me feedback, some did not give me. Some gave me feedback, said, no, slow. They said, no, there's nothing they can do, no slow. Some did not give feedback, they just did not answer the person that reached out to them. Some, brought positive experiences and get interviews. Realistically, it's not even only places that you do all of this effort, you get interviews. You get interviews from some places that you don't even know one soul there. That's how life works, okay? So at the end of the day, it's always a mix of everything. From places you put in a lot of effort, nothing comes out. Some places you put in a lot of effort, something comes out. Some places you put no effort, something happens. So at the end of the day, it's just still having your entire package ready and complete and not just depending on people to make that happen for you, okay? But it's really lovely that you have networks and you carry them along across the journey. So you're building that relationship, you're letting them know, you're speaking to them consistently, you're updating them on what is happening. And even after the match has ended, like minus the match, you go to their hospital, you don't go to their hospital. This will still be people in your networks throughout your residency program. When you finish residency, if you're looking for a job, still the same people that you're working with, building relationships as mentors, mentees, and so on. So that was my own experience.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Dr. Simi?
Okay.
Oh yeah, so BC and I are like really good friends, and we've been on this journey since. Our processes kind of mirrored each other because we discussed strategy, and the fact that our processes will mirror each other is it just still goes to show that human beings are the same in the sense that you can replicate what people have done and you will get similar results, and then you will start to see that that's how it will go if you do their steps. So for instance, now we discussed earlier in the year about giving people enough time so they know that yes, we're applying for the match and stuff. We start people much earlier in the year. Um but it was exactly the same thing because it wasn't just reaching out to people, but I always try to put like an action point of, okay, so I'm interested in knowing more about something. Would you be open to a meeting with me to discuss this, and that? And usually people, even people who you think are above your league, actually don't see it like that. And sometimes people who you think will give you a second look would actually tell you, oh yeah, sure. Here are my details, contact, like send me a calendar invite or something. And so, just like what BC said, for many months before the interview itself, we had already had mini interviews with different people. So much so that I usually joke that by the time interviews came, tell me about yourself was a question that I already knew how to answer because I had answered that question a lot of times. I had been telling people about myself way before the interview. But then you do need to do that because, again, these are some of the things that you're coming into the system. People don't really know you as well, and people don't really know how EM is like in Nigeria. So you need to really put yourself out there, and that's where networking with people comes in. And if you go through the data also, the data for the PDs, you would see that what people say about you was ranked high. So like feedback from residents was ranked high, and that's where networking with the residents come in. So you're applying to a program, you should reach out to the residents there. Hi, do you mind if I have a chat with you? Many of them are used to this. They've gone through the match themselves. They are usually open to talking to you, and they're very receptive. If there is a Nigerian in the program, you should talk to that Nigerian because the odds that are that the program director will ask that Nigerian if they know you because everybody just feels like I mean, you should know you're Nigerians. So if there's a Nigerian in the program, you must reach out to that person, and you must never interview without talking to the Nigerian in that program. And then if there are none, you have to just try your luck with some of the residents. But to be honest, many of them are very receptive and they would actually talk to you. Many of them will tell you what they are looking for in their program, and many of them will even give you interview tips. But just be ready for having like a year long of meetings and try to avoid Zoom fatigue as much as possible. But you just need to do those things. The ROI is unpredictable, like what BC said. It's very unpredictable. Some you can say that, oh yeah, I think knowing people in the program helped me. And some, if I can be very disappointing.
Exactly.
That's
All right.
amazing. I think it's a good thing that Amy already know three people. You know, we know BC, we know Simi, we know Courage, we know Faith, and a lot of other people. So yeah, we already know people in some other programs. I think that's a plus. But I wanted to ask especially considering the recent Trump uncertainties and everything. Is it wise to consider narrowing a selection of your programs for those programs that sponsor H1B visas, or just apply as widely even with the uncertainty of the J1 visa and stuff like that? What do you advise?
Okay, let me just talk about this briefly. So I did exactly that in my own journey. I ranked everything by H1B, both the programs I applied to and how I did my final ranking after interviews. H1B programs first, and then non-H1B programs, J1 programs, were like in the second category. I gave all priority to H1B, and at that time, there was no issue like this then. But I just really wanted to go on a H1B. Not because of any premonition of any sort, but I just felt like it was. So the way myself and my husband used to think about it is that every program that can offer H1B still has a J1 option. Okay, so the J1 option is always a fallback option that is available for every program as long as you're ECFMG certified. So shooting for the H1B gives you double option. If anything happens to the H1B, there will always be the J1. So that was how we thought about it. And we said, okay, we shoot for H1B and always keep that we still have the J1 as a second option because it's available to everybody who matches as an IMG. And so I tried to take my step 3 and try to be ready for that. And I think it was a good idea to do that. Hopefully still the J1, the issue, people that are having issues with J1, it will still go through because we see this as something that could be resolved because they are not particularly the target of the issue at the moment. So hopefully things will still get resolved and everybody will be able to get their visas and also go for residency training. But I realized that being able to pursue H1B is still a privilege. You need to have taken step 3, which means you need to have been in the United States. Step 3 can only be taken in the US. You need a visa for that. You need finances to be able to take a flight back and forth to stay in the US. And you also need one extra $1,000 for a third exam and all the study materials that you need. So it's a lot of expense. The reason why I was able to do it was because being where I am, I was able to get a visa easily. And it was the first time I got a US visa for the purpose of going to take step 3 and doing a couple of other things as well. So that's it. I know many people who had the money, were ready, were prepared, but were not able to secure a visa because US visa, visiting visa is also something you cannot predict. But if there's any case that you have the funds, I would say that you should definitely try for a H1B visa. And you
Oh, but she's going to surgery tomorrow. I going to the surgery. Oh yes, you have to do something.
somebody's okay, thank you.
So sorry. So
Please
sorry.
prioritize them if you can afford to do so, please do so.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so much. Simi, any different experience?
So unlike BC, I'm going on a J1 because, I mean, if we're being honest, like what BC said, it's difficult. The rejection rate for a visitor's visa in Nigeria is really high. I think it's about 78%. So many of us who wanted to go for step 3 from Nigeria were unable to secure a visitor's visa. The J1 visa is not particularly horrible. It's actually not a horrible visa. It's a good alternative. People will always say that you should prioritize training. Um, but if you can get an H-1B visa, then by all means get an H-1B. There are some additional requirements with the J-1 visa. There's some things that come with the J-1 visa that you won't have to deal with if you're going on an H-1B visa. And an H-1B visa also gives you like some extra benefits, like the ability to local normal light, like the you know. So so by all means, if you can get an H-1B visa, please do, even if it means you being a third country national, like you going to another country to apply for your visitor's visa. But that being said, like BC said, the targets are international students. You're a physician, which is a different category, but unfortunately, it's all lumped up under the same visa category. So the events are unfolding. It's very difficult to be able to say specifics as of now. And we know that the Department of State is having numerous meetings on this and trying to find a way to exclude physicians from the temporary post. Again, it's a temporary post, so we're all just waiting to see how it will go. But then ECFMG is the sole J1 sponsorship, J1 sponsor for all foreign graduates, and the advocacy is on their shoulder to advocate for the physicians, and they have to do that because they're the so we don't know how it will go, but we can actually stay positive because again, you're going there to work, so we can stay positive.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Uh,
Just before I let Lama continue, I have one last question, and this is more directed to BC. I think you can already figure out what it is about. So perhaps me and Dr. Lama might be interested in going to a same program. Is it possible for us to complete match as well? Also, yes, sir. Also, is it only for the same cycle you can you only apply as couple if you are applying to the same cycle, or can your partner join you in the same program after maybe in a different application cycle? How feasible is that? Thank you.
Great question. Yes, if you and Lama wanted to apply to the program, you can couples match. The couples match is not only for married couples, like many people will think because of the name. It implies any two persons who want to go to the same hospital. So they could be two friends, two siblings, twins do it as well, partners in a relationship, married partners as well. Like any two people can link their applications together to be able to couples match. The couples match is a big discussion. It's its own thing completely. And I would say that it's something you have to consider very carefully before you enter into it. You must be aware that there's a lot about the couples match that is out of your hands because you're in a couples match. And so if you're very willing to compromise and you are willing to be selfless in some situations, then you can go for the couples match. I will also say that you and your partner, you and the person you're looking to apply to, you have to have a lot of conversation, look through both your applications and see how it is a fit realistically for you. I would give an example. There are some specialties, for example, if a person is applying to a specialty that has a lot more opportunities in one part of the country than the other person's specialty, that person already has limited options in that place. And so if you choose that this is where we must go, you are advantaging yourself and disadvantaging the other person. It may be better to go somewhere that is not your first choice, but has more opportunities for the both of you nearly equally, so that the other person is not losing significantly. So that's the play of couples, right? It's a lot of compromise here and there. And so that's how that one works. There was something else you said about couples, but I can't remember what it was. What was the second question, please? I don't know.
Different cycles.
Yes. So about the different cycles, no, couples match does not work that way. So if I have matched this year and my husband wanted to match the year coming after, he would be just a regular applicant. But what I can do for him is that we can make sure that we do a lot of networking in the area that I am. So my hospital and all the hospitals in the same area, in the same state, in the same city. And I can also very strongly advocate for him in my hospital. And he too, in all his applications, he should be mentioning strongly that he has a significant tie to that location. So like that location can be like his hometown. He can also mention that his wife is there or his partner is there, and many other things. They will take it seriously when they hear that the person has family in that location.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bisi, for explaining all of that. So we're almost coming to the end of today's session, and I would like to go into something quite major. I think you started talking about it when you mentioned the US, non-US IMGs. It's actually the question of finances. So to somebody who is just about to start this journey, has not written step one, has not written step two, is just about to start. The person listened to this and was like, okay, I need to start preparing. Let me give my first question first. What would be your advice for the person financially? How should the person plan? What does it entail from that first initial decision to actually matching? And this person is in Nigeria, so to actually be matched, is there even extra cost for the person to now move there and then start getting settled? Like, what does it entail if the person has family there, or the person is just going, just going fresh, doesn't know anybody, just going to the US trying to find themselves? So what does it entail financially, step by step, so that people can start planning, and those that want to take loans to go, they can start planning what it is that they want to do?
Maybe you want to go first on this, on this one.
Okay. So I think BC has spoken a little bit about that, talking about how she chose to go to the UK, um, and how she worked in the UK also, and used that as a way to offset some of the costs associated. I think that if you're just starting out this process, unfortunately, you're coming to meet a very interesting exchange rate. This is the first time all of us are experiencing this kind of exchange rate as well. And depending on, one of the questions you have to ask yourself and be very honest about it is, how much support can I possibly get? Like, if I scrape and scrape and scrape from everywhere, if I open GoFundMe to my family members, like how much support can I get? And just be honest and realistic with yourself. It will guide your it will guide your next steps. Now, I'm I usually advocate for detours if you know that there is, and if we're all just being honest, yes, all things are not equal. But again, if you're being honest to yourself that even if you ask for help, you will not get it because you don't have that access. You might want to consider a detour to a country where you can earn money in a better currency. So you might want to consider masters like BC, or you might want to consider applying for jobs like there's some islands, um what's another island again? There's some islands that take people to come and work with them as lecturers to teach their students how to, so they can pass their USMLE step one, and they pay them in USD. Like if you talk to Nigerians, you find out the Nigerians are the most explore. We explore by nature. So you can talk to Nigerians. You see that people have tried many things. Some people were successful in what they tried. Some people were not. But you can always take use what they did and just try to find your way about. So that's for taking a detour. You might want to consider a detour to a country that will help you to earn money in a higher currency. Now, if you're unable to do that, you might just really need to ask for help. So the thing is, again, apart from working, truth is, in if you're working and earning in naira, there is just so much you can do. Even if you look home, even if you combine two jobs, there is just so much that you can do, if you're being honest. Um, but you do have a small subset of people who have been privileged enough to have mentors, or people who have seen them and seen what they've done, like how much effort they have put into what they're doing, and then get to know about the financial challenges that they are having and decide to sponsor them. It's a smaller subset of people, and it's probably not something to bank on because again, it's a smaller subset of people. But we do have people who have found sponsors, or who have had mentors that turned sponsors, or or who are just lucky enough to have discussed this with somebody who decided that, okay, you know what, don't let finances be what will deter you from your goals. Let me take care of that for you. Now that's a small subset of, but you do have to be very honest with yourself. But what I would say, and coming from my own personal perspective, is that if it's really what you want to do, then you should set out to do it. Now you don't have to do everything back to back. It's when you take everything together as a whole lump sum that it gets really overwhelming. But then the best way to eat an elephant is to take one bite at a time. So you take it step by step. So if I really want to do this, what's my first step? My first step is CFMG registration. How much is that? $160. How do I find $160? Okay, now I've done my CFMG registration. What's my next step? To do my step one. How much do I need for my materials? How much do I need to do the exam? Okay, how can I circumvent this cost? What are the things I can do? Do I go by road to Ghana or do I go by air? If I'm going by road, do I want to hop country to country to country because it's cheaper, or do I want to take a direct bus? Please take a direct bus. I'm not advocating for country to country, but I'm just saying that some people, because push came to shove, had had to do the hopping one, like how you do down full sole kind of thing to save costs. People have done. I mean, like again, Nigerians were very adventurous because we always try to find our way out of whatever situation that we have been put into. So per step, you can find ways to really cut costs to the barest minimum where you're only paying for what you really don't have a choice but to pay for. But if you're able to take a detour, because again, like I said, this situation with currency and the exchange rate is new. We're all experiencing it for the first time, and we don't know how long it will continue to be this way. You might want to seriously consider a detour, anything that can give you a higher hand. Some people have been able to get some remote jobs in Nigeria that pay in USD. Okay, that's a small subset of people. But just try everything. At least one thing will work. Try the work way. Try migrating somewhere else first. Try getting a job in Nigeria that pays in USD. Try to get sponsors. I'm not saying you should just come to people and say, oh yes, this can you sponsor me? No, but you can, in your interactions with people, you can somehow just chip it in or find a way around explaining how it's a very difficult thing to say because this is very individualized. But then again, just always work at what you're doing and don't let finances be that thing that is more of a challenge rather than something that means that you will cancel your plans, or more of something that let me find a way to work around this. It's a big thing, actually. It's a big thing. It's very sacrificial. Like to make up to pay for some of these things, you may need to even let go of some of your regular daily comforts or some, like it's a sacrifice. But the truth is that it's going to be worth it at the end of the day, and it's a sacrifice worth making, or whatever the sacrifice entail. It might cost you more time because you may not be able to do your exams back to back because you need to save up money for the next exam. It might cost you friendship and memories in the sense that you're probably not always going to be physically there to hang out with people, because you're probably working or because you don't want to spend money on that at that point in time. But again, at the end of the day, it's still a sacrifice that's worth it. But just ask yourself that question: how much support can I garner? And based on your answer to that question, use that to figure out how you can apply to as many opportunities as you can. Apply for competitions that pay, especially competitions that pay in USD. Find whatever means you can to raise. Like there are multiple ways. You just keep stripping by and you get there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simi. Dr. BC. So, but in the meantime, let me just announce, please, if you have questions, kindly drop them in the chat box because we're soon going to be wrapping up. I think after this, we have one more question. So whatever questions you have, please drop them in the chat box so we can look through and quickly answer because we're running out of time. Yes, so Dr. BC.
Simi has said and given so many ideas already, so there's no need to repeat. One other idea that I know some people did that she did mention is some people took professional loans. Okay, so there are some organizations that fund people's match journeys. but they have criteria for who they choose. Like they are very strict about the teams they choose because they want to be sure you're the kind of candidate that would match and be able to go. So it may be a bit, it's not this thing, but some people do fund match journeys and give loans and begin to pay them once you get into residency in the United States. So that's another option that's available. For me, with the finance thing, it was very similar point she has mentioned, but just a slightly different approach. What I did was that when I was still in med school in 2020, in my final year of med school, I did a projection of how much I was going to need in US dollars. The information is very widely available. Like if you start searching each item, you can put together a good list of what you need. So it came to a total of about 15,000 US dollars, I think. And this was in 2020. I knew that this was the year I wanted to match this 2024 to 2025. So I broke down the amount of money by how much I needed to earn, let me say on a yearly basis, to be able to do the activities I wanted to do in that year. I don't know if that really makes sense, but kind of next year, I want to take step one and I want to do my registration and take step one. It's going to cost this amount. And this is my target for the year, financial target for the year, as well as what I want to achieve with that money. So that was how I broke down my own. I broke down my own over 5 years, how much I wanted to earn each year and what I was going to be doing with that money each year. I made sure that there was a balance between how much I could be working to earn money versus the time I needed to be doing the activities the money would do, which is taking the exams. If you're working all through and raising money, but you don't have time to study, I don't know if you'll be able to progress at the rates that you want. I also did not want to go beyond 5 years because I don't know, you may have heard that like post-graduation, time after graduation, affects your chances. It's not a positive thing to really stay too long after graduation. So that was another reason I wanted to wrap it up in 5 years. And so that was my own general approach looking into it. I wanted to take one exam every year, do a couple of things each year and try to build up until the year that I will apply to March. Also at that time, I was strongly considering going for a master's degree. First, because my now husband was in the UK as well, pursuing a postgraduate degree. That was one factor I had in mind. Personally, I had always wanted to do a master's degree in the field that I did it, either before or after residency. But this was a good time to do it because I could raise money also in support, since I knew that I was going to be taking a couple of years before applying for the match. So I chose to do that now. And then I saw that as a good opportunity to raise money, as well as to also be building my application towards applying for the match. I also thought that it would be a good place to apply for visas, just because I had heard that applying for US visas in the United Kingdom had a higher rate of being positive than in Nigeria. So all of these factors put together were why I decided that I was going to go to the United Kingdom. I could have also gone to the United States for a master's degree. However, I prioritized UK, like I said earlier, because my now husband was in the United Kingdom and we also wanted to be out of a long distance relationship, which we had been for a long time. So all these factors worked in my favor to come into the United Kingdom for a master's degree. And in my case, it worked out very positively. I'm not speaking for everybody who has taken a detour, but in my case, it worked out positively. Throughout my master's degree of 1 year, I worked all through and I was able to raise a lot of the money I needed for my step 2, my step 3, my visas, my travel, everything. And of course, it was a lot of work as well. Like I worked 2-3 jobs at different points in time, but I was working a lot, but I was able to raise that money. And even now, after the match, expenses continue to pile. Like we are out of match, but we're not done. Like tickets are nearing $1,000 to move to the United States, or even more than that, depending on where you're flying from. Tickets are extremely expensive. Many things you need to do around the visas. Still a lot of payments to continue to do. And so I've been working even since after my master's degree, just being able to get a job and continue working and building on that. It also allowed me to progress in other aspects of my life, like personal aspects of my life. So being closer to my partner, who is now my husband. And so that was the reason I chose that detour road for myself. But I know that people have done many other things, like going to the Caribbean, like Simi said, and even going to the United States itself for master's degree or for research fellowships. So the jobs called research fellowships, which some people apply for to work as research assistants in the United States. Some of them get paid, and it's also a very good opportunity to be building networks and being around programs while you're applying. In fact, I would say, all things considered, going for a research fellowship in the US may be the #1 pathway that is a high rate of matching the following year after you've done such a job. So that's my own point of view on the matter.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that answer. I think we just have one question in the chat box. And then they said, can we get tips on what to do and what not to do during the interviews? Although I would want to also see that a lot of emphasis was being made on the fact that the interviews, the more you get to interact with other people, it also builds you, because I think from what I understood, there are different interviews and you would need to, it's not a one answer fits all sorts of things, because different things can be asked with different interviews. So, but let me give room for the guest speakers to actually quickly answer it, so that we'll go to our last question and we close for tonight. So, Dr. Simi?
Okay. Sorry, I will just go back a bit. Thank you, Beauty, for mentioning research fellowships. That's something that I actually wanted to mention. That if you can actually prioritize getting a research fellowship, it's one thing that is not so much of a detour, but it can also help you in getting the finances that you need without having to take a professional loan or so. And it also has the benefit of physically putting you in the US, such that it's easier for you to take your step three, and it's easier for you to, visit programs in person and go for your second looks and all the other things that happen after an interview. But one thing that I would suggest for a research fellowship, which is a mistake that I would say I personally made, is that don't follow the don't follow the application notices, in the sense that don't be on the lookout for, okay, the job application is an opening, is a vacancy. Don't follow that, but instead reach out to people who have in the past, who you've seen in the past have employed a research scholar that they paid, because many of these research fellowships are actually unpaid. But reach out to people who you've seen have accepted a postgrad or a research scholar into their own lab and paid them. And you can just send them a cold email detailing how you're interested in that field or something, and ask them if there will be an opening for a research fellow in the future and if they can consider you. And then you can attach a link to your CV, or you may not, because sometimes when you attach files, their malware software can bounce your email. So you might want to hold off on attaching your CV initially. But what I would just say is, don't just be on the lookout for vacancies, but connect with people, and you can get connect with people that have that track record of employing research scholars, and then see if you can get a role that way. It involves them sponsoring a visa, and that can sometimes be a challenge, and because you get J1, but still it's has a better ROI than focusing on vacancy slots or vacancy announcements. And then for the question on what to do or what not to do during interviews, someone gave a suggestion that I always kept in mind, and she said, just don't be a weirdo. Aim is big on who you are as a person. And so interpersonal skills is the highest thing that people use in deciding how to rank an applicant. So you're going to be more focused on interacting well with your interviewers and interacting well with the residents. So be yourself, but also don't be a weirdo. I don't know how best to put it, but you would know what it is like to be a weirdo, and you know what's like you will have an idea of what to say and what not to say. And there are usually questions that you would expect to answer during an interview. As you get closer to the interview preparation phase, you would start to see more and more of these documents. You should be prepared to answer questions of tell me about yourself, for instance, or can you tell me your plans for the future? What's your 10-year plan? Or where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? These are common questions that people would ask, and you must prepare answers for them. Try not to make political jokes. Those things, you cannot guarantee how they will land, so it's better to shy off them. If someone makes a political joke at you, just smile. You would never go wrong by not engaging in a political joke. And same thing with controversial topics too. You would generally want to shy away from them. They tend not to come up actually, in my own experience, but if they do come up for you, just avoid political and controversial talks. And answer and be prepared for your question. Don't sound rehearsed, because then it sounds like you're talking to a robot. but sound like somebody that has actually prepared and is able to talk without stuttering through or without scrambling for ideas or without sounding so flustered like they're just hearing this question for the first time. So I would just say that that's like a brief summary of what you should do. And practice is very important because when you practice, then you know how this sounds to your own ears, and then it gives you a better idea of what to say also. And always try to project yourself in a positive light. Even when people ask you about something like the potential red flag from your application, like so have you ever had a rotation in the US? You must always find a way to admit your if it is brought up, never bring up a red flag yourself. But if it is brought up, always find a way to admit it and spin it around to a positive light. Like, all right, even though I have not had an in-person US clinical experience, I've had two tele-rotations in this and this. I'm supervised by this person and this person, under which I learned this and that. And I think that in taking so and so courses, it better broaden my view of what it is like to practice in the US and my interactions with this resident and this resident and this mentor. They have helped me to further. You have to put it in a way that spins it back to a positive light, and don't just stop at saying, "Oh yes," or just admitting that red flag. I hope that actually. I mean, is there anything you like to add?
Sorry, I was typing a response to somebody in the chat on that question. What's the question about?
Or tips of what to do and what not to do in an
Yes.
interview.
Yes.
I think it's the same thing for your social nights as well, because many interviews have social gatherings that happen before the interview. So you want to be seen in a positive light at the social meet that is held with the residents. They always tell you that they don't give feedback to the program. Yes, they don't give feedback to the program, but they give feedback on applicants when in ranking meetings when they come together to decide how they will rank the applicants. So even though they're not saying what you said, but they're going to share their perception of you. And so it's important that you always portray yourself in a positive light. Just don't be a weirdo.
You've said the majority of it. My to-dos: practice before you go for your interviews. Try to practice with friends and other people who are in the match season. That is applicants in the season. Try to practice with people who have matched as residents. Try to practice with faculty members who will be interviewing. Get a very good perspective and a broad reach that way. People who have just gone through it, people who are going through it with you, and people who are the ones who are going to be interviewing other people. They will all give you very good reflective points that can help you improve on your speaking skills and interviewing skills. Do's as well: prepare your interviewing space, your outfits, your corner of your house. Ensure to have everything having a contingency plan, like your data, have another option for coverage for that. Your light source, just try to have a lot of coverage for that and make sure you've planned for it very well. Do as well, think a bit about like how you want to also present yourself. And okay, that's not a good, I was going to say something, but it could go bad. I was going to say that you should also think about like how to ensure that you make the people that you're interviewing with feel comfortable by like being humorous, laughing at jokes and things like that. But I know that some people make some awkward jokes that may not land well, and so maybe don't do that. But things not to do: political topics, stay out of them. Religious topics are a bit dicey because they are heavily politicized in the United States. So I don't know if it is, I don't want to say stay out of them as well, just because, are you really a Christian like this? No, that's not what I'm saying. But religious topics too may not be, I am a Christian, but I know every people are of different religions here. It may not be a safe space to also venture into. Gender-related topics as well, like especially not from a positive light. Speaking, like they ask you what's one experience that you have from your past, and what you're trying to say is that you learned that women this way used to give you, or men, please don't do that. Like, don't talk about things that you know can be misconstrued or misunderstood depending on the person who is receiving the information. Anything that can go either way, be very careful about topics like that, especially when they're asking you about tricky topics like a conflict you had in the past. Be very careful about how you take topics like that, because it's possible to buy into stereotypes that you already have in your mind and speak about them. So, yeah. I think Simi has said everything as well. I'll stop there.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. BC and Dr. Simi. We're rounding up there. So just as a way to round up, your closing statements. This last question is actually something you've already discussed all through this meeting, but it's just as an avenue to close up. You could add your any other last points possibly you would want to let everybody know about that possibly wasn't asked during the course of this fireside chat. So someone is asking that, assuming this is the one for me, I want to put up a CV, I want to start building a resume. I have not written any exam. I've gotten an idea from what Dr. Simi and Dr. BC already said about the finances. I'll sit down and make a budget. I understand the pathways. At least I have a skeletal framework of what it should be. What do I start putting in that CV? I know that I need research there. I know I need some bit of volunteer work, some papers here and there, but just help me just put my thoughts together about what I should start doing. Assuming this is the zero. So who's going first? Dr. Simi.
I'll leave actually this to go first. This is my data grower. I borrow data from DC all the time. But then DC, would you like to go first?
Okay, let me go first. This question is hard to answer, honestly, and it's many of the things we've already said today. And I hope that this is the last question for the day, honestly, because we've stayed beyond time to our very lovely host.
Yes,
I think we've kept everybody a bit too long, so we may need to do like a second version or a catch-up. Overall, my approach, because even my brain is getting tired, my approach to starting to build your CV, day one, today is your day one, you've never thought about it before. Everything is zero, nothing, you have nothing on your volunteering, nothing on your research, nothing anywhere. How do you start? And you're still a medical student, or maybe you've graduated as a doctor. First of all, evaluate yourself. Start from there. Like, what do you go and search? What have you done before? What have you never done? What have you gone for? What was that one mission trip you went for? You actually need to put together everything you've ever in any way contributed to and write them somewhere. I did that for the first time when I was in 400. That was the first time I started thinking about all of these things that, there could something called CV and, you need to build that. And so I first sat down and just had a day. It was a Saturday of thinking about like, just a quick evaluation. I thought about everything, all the categories I had heard of. And I realized the ones I had nothing, the ones I had one or two things. So my volunteering was pretty strong at that time because I'd always been someone who would go for, like, if they have one program, one event, I will always attend, even though it was not because I was building a CV. And so that was the first time I started thinking about them, trying to recollect the dates, the name of the event, blah, 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 and putting them together for a CV. That was also when I realized my research had nothing, leadership had nothing, like there was nothing in different other categories that they would typically ask for when you're submitting or putting together a CV. So you need to start with an evaluation. Try to think about what you've done, what you have, what you don't have, and where are your weak points. Based on the timing that you have, like how available you are for things. If you're still a medical student, you are busy because you have school. You now need to know what you need to build. So it's your priorities points you start building, the area that you have weaknesses. If where your weakness is in research and you have nothing there and you're interested in building something there, because you may not be interested and you're interested in building something, and then that's where your priority should be, and those are the experiences you should focus on. Try not to overstretch yourself in multiple things, because this is what happens, that I mentioned this, you sign up. They mentioned that you sign up, you've not contributed to any one of them, you cannot attend the meetings, you cannot do anything because you are too busy and you're stretched thin. Try to avoid that situation. It will not do you well. Why? You cannot get any good recommendation from the people you have volunteered yourself with at course. Like, people will not speak good of the work that you're doing because you're not available to do them. Pick one or two important experiences for you that is a priority area you want to build on, and devote your time well to them. Like, I'm a very big believer in, if you're going to do something, please do it well. If you're not going to, it's better not to do it at all than to do it halfway. So if you have limited time and limited effort, which we all do because time is a resource that is finite, please look at what your weak areas are, define what your areas are, and then that is the area that you should be focusing on. So I'm not going to tell you, oh, how to build your physique, do one research, do one voluntary, do one, no, that's not how it realistically works. I think you should know what you want to build, know where you need to build things, and those are the ones you should focus on. In terms of finding the experiences to do them, I cannot explain all of that now because there are so many ways that you can find opportunities. But if it's research, you will do your 500 or 600 level research in your medical school. Take it seriously, do it well, do your research well, present it for and as an abstract, submit it for publication. Try to use that to get at least 1 to 2 or 3 items. Volunteer with some of your professors in medical school on their own research topics in maybe internal medicine department, cardiology department, things that overlap very well with emergency medicine if EM is your interest. If any other specialty is your interest, in that specialty, go to professors in your school who are doing research in those topics, volunteer with them and start building your experience in that area. If it's volunteering you're trying to build, when volunteering in EM does not have to be EM based. It doesn't really have to. It can be any health topic. In fact, it can be a non-health topic. But if you're very serious about EM based topics, there are many organizations that we've mentioned in the EMIG community that we recommend. Even the one that Simi is a very big proponent for, you can also reach out to her for that. It's an organization that does a lot of work in EMS in Lagos and in Nigeria. So those are organizations you should be joining on. Simi, if you can please put the link to your organization here so that others, people who are interested can join. So you can join organizations like that and begin to build in the volunteering sector. If it is things around leadership you're trying to build, you want to be more out there, you want to build more opportunities to take up leadership opportunities. In your medical school structure, my own school was AMSO, that's Association of Medical Students of the University of Lagos. People apply to join onto positions, they contest, they do things, and they build themselves in leadership. Or in the volunteering organization, take up opportunities to lead on projects, to lead on deliveries. Those are ways to build in your leadership. There's so many ways, like there's no one answer on to how to do it. But I think my own personal suggestion would be to think about it, evaluate, define your priority areas, what you want to work on, and focus on those ones at least per time. Later on, you can switch to something else when you feel that you have built on that area significantly.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. PC. Dr. Simi, would you like to add any closing statements?
Yeah, I mean, like you said everything really. But one thing I would just add is, and this is probably just because I really like data as a person. You can, if you have not done any single thing, the first thing to do will be to research, and like what Bisi said, then evaluate yourself based on what you've researched to see where you fall short. And in researching, you also have to ask yourself the question of, do you really want to do this thing? Because I genuinely believe that the going is always tough in anything that is worth it really. But it is really that passion that will keep you going, even when the going is tough. So if you're in it for the wrong reason, you will likely burn out. So you have to be honest with yourself if this is something that you really want to do, or if it's something that you just feel like, yeah, it's a good option to consider. But besides that, also check. So you can go through the residency application itself. You would already have an idea from looking at it, the things you will feel at some point in your life. And then you know that you're going to fill in experiences, and you know that under experiences you're going to be putting things like work experience, volunteer experience, research experience. You talk about one impactful experience that has nothing to do with work or not. So these are things that you can actually be ruminating on passively over time until you get to the stage of actually applying it. And again, like what we've been saying also, um, you know, do all these other things longitudinally, network, do your research, improve on your experiences, get the funds that you need to fund the process, and pace yourself in such a way that it's not overwhelming for you. So pace yourself based on how much you think you need to do part time, and always ask for help when you feel stuck. You must never do this journey alone, and you're surrounded by a lot of people who have done this. So always reach out for help at every point you feel stuck, or at every point you're about to take on a new step of the journey, and always ask for help. Always synthesize people's experiences, and then use that wealth of experience to choose how you would go ahead. That's just what I will add. Data, do a lot of research on what you're doing, and always ask for help. Always ask for help, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. BC and Dr. Simi, for your time, for your wisdom, for the insight that you shared with us all today. We are very, very grateful. Thank you so much. And to all the participants that joined into today's meeting, I'd like to say thank you and a very sincere apology for extending beyond the scheduled time, and also a very big sorry to our guest speakers as well. You possibly may have made other plans. We know you're very busy. Sorry that we took your time beyond the normal time that we sent a message about. So thank you so much. I believe we all learned a lot today, and I believe that a lot of people also have some questions still that have not yet been answered. So you can actually connect with our speakers via their LinkedIn handles, that is Adebisi Adeye and then also Simiolua Onabajo on LinkedIn. And a lot of you have also been asking a lot of questions about the Emergency Medicine Interest Group Nigeria. You can follow us on our social media handles to get more information, actually, because we have a big information coming up about our next recruitment process. So if you want to be a part of EMIG Nigeria, please and please try as much as possible. Do not procrastinate it. Go and follow us on our social media handles, our LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Okay, now it's been called X. So just try and follow us. We have a big information coming up about it so that you can actually get to be a part of this body. And as you have noticed, or as you have heard it being emphasized over and over again, networking is a crucial aspect of growth in the professional space. You can't go anywhere without networking. So if you're looking forward to starting that journey, joining EMIG is a very good step in the right direction. So try as much as possible, follow us on our social media handles and get the information. So when the information is out, you can apply to be a part of this organization, and then from there you can keep building your network and keep expanding it. So thank you so much. Thank you to the executives. Thank you so much for being here. I think there's one question. Please, how do we get the recording? Yes, the recording will be shared to the EMIG platform. We'll share a link to the platform, and whatever other details, I think you'll get to see it on the EMIG social media profile. So thank you so much once again. Do have a very great evening. Thank you, Dr. BC. Thank you, Dr. Simi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a very good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Bye.